Captain Ellie Mason stood alone at the observation deck of Starbase 47, staring at what would soon be her new command. The USS Reliant floated in the docking bay, its metal hull showing signs of age and countless repairs. Unlike the gleaming, new ships that occupied the other bays, the Reliant was a relic from the past century. Its blocky design lacked the smooth curves of modern vessels, and its hull was marked with old-style identification numbers that had long since been replaced by holographic markers on newer ships. Ellie sighed and pressed her hand against the cold glass. After 15 years of perfect service and 3 commendations for bravery, this was her reward? A ship that belonged in a museum? There she is. Your new command, said a voice behind her. Ellie turned to see Admiral Jones, his gray, hair neatly combed, his uniform perfect as always. His smile didn't reach his eyes. With all due respect, sir, why the Reliant? Ellie asked. My crew was promised the Horizon after our last mission. The Admiral joined her at the window. The Horizon went to Captain Wells. The committee felt his experience with the new AI navigation systems made him better suited. You mean they didn't want to waste a new ship on my team? Ellie said. The Admiral didn't deny it. Look, Mason, not everyone believes in your methods. You rely too much on human judgment and not enough on our advanced systems. The fleet is moving forward, not backward. Ellie bit her tongue. She had won those commendations by trusting her instincts when the computers had been wrong. But the military these days wanted officers who followed the AI's suggestions without question. When do we ship out? She asked instead. 1 week, enough time to get familiar with her quirks. The Admiral handed her a data pad. Your crew assignments. Many requested transfers when they heard about the Reliant. After the Admiral left, Ellie looked again at the old ship. The Reliant had been state-of-the-art when it was built, but that was nearly 100 years ago. Now it was considered little more than a training vessel. She scrolled through the crew list, noting how few names she recognized from her previous command. They really cleaned house, didn't they? She muttered to herself. The next morning, Ellie boarded the Reliant for the first time. The airlock hissed as it sealed behind her, the sound louder and more mechanical than the silent operations of newer ships. The air smelled of metal and machine oil instead of the clean, filtered atmosphere she was used to. Captain on deck, called a young officer, and the handful of crew members in the entrance bay stood at attention. At ease, Ellie said, looking around at their faces. Most looked as disappointed to be there as she felt. I'm Captain Mason. Where's the chief engineer? A man with grease-stained hands stepped forward. Sam Porter, ma'am. Still trying to get the main systems online. This old girl hasn't flown in 5 years. Can she fly at all? Ellie asked. Sam's face broke into a small smile. Oh, she'll fly. The old fusion engines aren't pretty, but they're solid. No quantum drive, though. We'll be using the jump gates like they did in the old days. Ellie nodded. The jump gates were slower and less precise than modern quantum drives, which could fold space itself. It meant their journey times would be 3 or 4 times longer than the rest of the fleet. Show me the bridge, she ordered. As they walked through the narrow corridors, Ellie noticed the differences from modern ships. Everything was physical here. Buttons and switches instead of holographic interfaces, metal doors that slid on tracks rather than dissolving into walls, actual paper emergency procedure manuals bolted next to key stations. The bridge was smaller than she expected. A central captain's chair faced a main view screen, not the 360-degree immersive display she was used to. Stations for navigation, weapons, communications, and science formed a semicircle around the chair, each with its own dedicated officer's seat and control panel. It's so manual, she said. Sam nodded. That's why they kept her around as long as they did. Good for training new officers on the basics before they moved to the automated systems. A young man at the navigation station looked up from his work. Lieutenant Alan Wright, Captain, navigation officer. He didn't look thrilled about it. Previous posting, Lieutenant? Ellie asked. The Dauntless, ma'am. I was being considered for the Horizon before this assignment. Ellie understood his bitterness. Like her, he had been pushed aside. Over the next few days, more crew arrived. They all told similar stories, promising careers suddenly diverted to the outdated Reliant. By the end of the week, Ellie had met all 53 members of her crew, less than a quarter of what a modern ship would carry. Automation had replaced most of the functions that required large crews in the past. The night before their departure, Ellie sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the ship's specs again. The Reliant was slower, less powerful, and lacked most of the advanced sensors and weapons of modern vessels. Their assignment was simple: patrol the outer colonies, a milk run meant to keep them out of the way, while the real fleet prepared for possible first contact with the newly discovered Arcturian alliance. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. It was Communications Officer Diane Kelly, a woman in her 40s who had been one of the few volunteers for the Reliant. "Most of the crew is gathered in the mess hall, Captain," Diane said. "They're pretty down about tomorrow's launch. Might help if you said a few words." Ellie hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you, Officer Kelly. I'll be right there." The mess hall fell silent when Ellie entered. Faces turned toward her, some curious, some resigned, none particularly hopeful. "I know this isn't the assignment any of us wanted," she began, looking around the room. "The Reliant isn't the newest or the fastest ship in the fleet. She doesn't have AI assistance or quantum technology. What she has is us." Ellie walked among the tables, making eye contact with her crew. "They put us here because they think we can't handle the real missions. They think we need to be out of the way. I say we use this opportunity to show them what real space exploration is about. People making decisions, not computers." She saw a few nods, a few straightened backs. 100 years ago, ships like the Reliant made first contact with 3 new species. They charted the Cygnus sector and established the colonies were being sent to patrol. They did it without quantum drives or AI navigation. Engineer Porter raised his glass. "They did it with guts and brains, Captain." "Exactly," Ellie said. "Tomorrow, when the fleet watches us depart, they'll be laughing at our outdated ship. But I promise you this, by the time we return, they won't be laughing anymore." She hadn't planned to make such a bold statement, but as she said it, she realized she meant it. Something about the old ship had gotten under her skin. Maybe it was the way everyone had written it off, just as they had written off her career. "To the Reliant," she said, raising an imaginary glass. This time every crew member stood, raising their drinks. "To the Reliant." As Ellie looked at their faces, she saw something that hadn't been there before, a small spark of pride, of determination. Maybe this old ship wasn't just a dead end. Maybe it was a chance to prove that sometimes the old ways still had value. None of them could have known then how soon that theory would be tested, or how much would depend on their success. 3 months into their patrol mission, the Reliant moved slowly through the outer reaches of the Europa Prime system. The ship's engines hummed at a steady pace, the sound now familiar and almost comforting to the crew who had learned to work with the old vessel's quirks. On the bridge, Captain Ellie Mason sat in her chair, reviewing reports from the 5 colony outposts they had visited so far. Despite their initial disappointment, her crew had settled into a routine. The ship might be slow, but it was reliable in its own way. "Another boring day in the outer colonies," Lieutenant Wright said from his navigation station. His fingers tapped physical buttons instead of gliding through holographic controls like on modern ships. "Boring is good," Ellie replied. "It means everyone is safe." Science Officer Greg Phillips turned from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual energy readings from the research outpost on Europa Prime." Ellie stood and moved to his station. "What kind of readings?" "Not sure. The Reliance sensors aren't as precise as newer models, but there's definitely something strange happening down there. It doesn't match any known pattern in our database." Communications Officer Diane Kelly suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, I'm receiving a distress signal." "Put it through," Ellie ordered. Static filled the bridge, mixed with broken words. "Under attack. Unknown vessels. Need immediate. Weapons we've never." The transmission cut off abruptly. "You clean that up?" Ellie asked. Diane shook her head. That's the best I can do with our equipment. There's unusual interference across all channels. Ellie returned to her chair. Alert the fleet. Send them everything we've got. Then set course for Europa Prime. Maximum speed. Captain, Wright said hesitantly, the nearest fleet vessel is the Horizon. With their quantum drive, they could be here in 2 hours. It would take us almost a day to reach Europa Prime. Then we'd better get moving, she replied, firmly. People are in danger right now. Send the alert, set the course. As the Reliant changed direction, the crew worked with renewed purpose. They might be slow, but they were the only help within range. 12 hours later, the Reliant was still 6 hours from Europa Prime when every system on the bridge suddenly lit up with warnings. Massive energy surge detected, Phillips called out. It's like a wave moving through the entire sector. Source? Ellie demanded. Unknown, but it's heading straight for us. Ellie hit the ship-wide communication button. All hands, brace for impact. The energy wave hit the Reliant with tremendous force. The lights flickered and several stations sparked. For a moment, everything went dark. Then, slowly, the emergency lights came on, followed by the main systems rebooting one by one. Damage report, Ellie called out. Engineer Porter's voice came over the comm. Main power temporarily knocked out, but the old backup systems kicked in right away. No critical damage, Captain. What was that? Ellie asked, turning to Phillips. TQ. Science officer stared at his readings. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, but on a scale I've never seen before. It should have fried all our systems. Diane sat up suddenly. Captain, I'm receiving multiple distress calls, not just from Europa Prime, but from our fleet vessels too. Put them through, Ellie ordered. A series of panicked voices filled the bridge. USS Horizon to any ships. We've lost all systems, drifting without power. This is the Stellar Dawn. Our quantum core is offline, AI navigation unresponsive. Research outpost Europa Prime. The attack continues. 3 unknown vessels, our defenses are down. The bridge fell silent as the messages ended. Why are we still operational? Wright asked, looking around at the functioning bridge. Engineer Porter rushed onto the bridge, his face flushed with excitement. It's the ship, Captain. The Reliant's old system saved us. Explain, Ellie said. Modern ships rely entirely on quantum tech and AI integration. Their systems are all connected through neural networks. But the Reliant? He patted the metal wall with affection. She's old school. Separate systems, manual controls, physical, wiring instead of neural pathways. That pulse was designed to take out modern tech. It barely affected us. Ellie looked at the distress signal map. Every modern vessel in the sector was dead in space. Only the Reliant remained operational. Can we help the other ships? She asked. Porter shook his head. Not quickly. Their quantum cores will need complete restarts, and that takes days without external help. And Europa Prime? They need us now, Captain, Phillips said quietly. According to these readings, they're still under attack. Ellie stood, feeling the weight of command more heavily than ever before. So the most advanced ships in the fleet are helpless, and the only vessel that can respond is our 100-year-old relic? Yes, ma'am, Porter said with a hint of pride. Ellie turned to face her crew. She saw uncertainty on their faces, but also determination. Lieutenant Wright, continue course to Europa Prime, maximum speed. Officer Kelly, keep monitoring those distress calls. See if you can get more information about the attackers. Phillips, I want everything you can tell me about those vessels. Porter, get back to engineering. Make sure every system on this ship is at peak performance. As her officers rushed to their tasks, Ellie sat back in her captain's chair. Just 3 months ago, they had all been disappointed to serve on this outdated vessel. Now it was the only ship still functioning. Weapon status? She asked. Weapons Officer Paul Carter, who had been quietly monitoring his station, looked up. Old but operational, Captain. Kinetic railguns at full capacity. No energy weapons like modern ships, but our projectiles don't need quantum guidance. Defensive systems? Basic deflector shields. Not as advanced as modern vessels, but they're solid. And unlike the new ships, our systems aren't integrated. If one goes down, the others stay up. Ellie nodded slowly. So while the fleet is paralyzed with their advanced tech, we're heading into battle with technology from the last century. Yes, Captain, Carter replied. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Ellie allowed herself a small smile. Inform the crew. We are now the only operational starship in this sector. Europa Prime is under attack, and we're all they've got. The Reliant pushed forward through space, its old engines working at full capacity. On the main view screen, Europa Prime grew steadily larger, as did the 3 unknown vessels surrounding the research outpost. Their sleek, predatory shapes were unlike anything in human records. First contact, Phillips whispered, but not the way anyone expected. Open a channel to the unknown vessels, Ellie ordered. Let's see if they want to talk before we fight. As Diane worked to establish communication, Ellie gazed at the alien ships. The rest of the fleet had been preparing for first contact with the Arcturian Alliance for months. They had the latest technology, the best training, carefully designed protocols. And yet here was the Reliant, the ship everyone had written off, about to make history if they survived. No response came from the alien vessels as the Reliant approached Europa Prime. The 3 sleek ships continued their attack on the research outpost, firing weapons that seemed to bypass the colony's shields completely. They're ignoring us, Communications Officer Kelly said, shutting down the open channel after repeated attempts to make contact. Or they don't see us as a threat, Captain Ellie Mason replied, studying the alien vessels on the view screen. Could be an advantage. The bridge crew watched as another blast from the lead alien ship hit the research outpost. The colony's remaining defenses flickered weakly. Life signs? Ellie asked. Science Officer Phillips checked his readings. 217 humans still alive in the main research complex. Shields failing. They won't last another hour at this rate. Ellie made her decision. Battle stations. Throughout the ship, alarm lights flashed as crew members rushed to their posts. Unlike the automated battle preparations of modern vessels, each station on the Reliant required human hands to operate. Approaching weapons range, Lieutenant Wright announced from navigation. The aliens still haven't responded to our presence, Kelly reported. Ellie nodded. They might not consider us a threat with our outdated technology. Let's use that. Lieutenant Wright, take us in behind the smallest vessel. Weapons Officer Carter, target their engines with the railguns. Railguns? Carter asked, surprised. Not the missile systems. Those ships have energy shields designed to stop energy weapons and guided projectiles, Ellie explained. The railguns fire simple metal slugs at high velocity. Sometimes the basics work best. The Reliant moved slowly. Into position. On modern ships, this approach would have been handled by AI targeting systems. Here, it required perfect coordination between Wright at navigation and Carter at weapons. Steady, Ellie said, watching as they approached the alien vessel from behind. Fire when ready. Carter pressed the firing control. The Reliant shuddered as its main railgun launched a solid metal projectile at incredible speed. The simple weapon, considered outdated by fleet standards, struck the alien ship before it could react. The kinetic impact tore through the vessel's rear section. Direct hit, Carter called out. Their engine section is damaged. The 3 alien ships finally took notice. The damaged vessel turned awkwardly, trying to bring its weapons to bear on the Reliant. The other 2 broke off their attack on the colony and moved to engage. They're coming about, Wright warned. All 3 targeting us now. Evasive maneuvers, Ellie ordered. Pattern Delta. Wright looked confused for a moment. Delta? That's from the old naval warfare manual. Exactly, Ellie said. These aliens have studied our modern tactics. Let's show them something they haven't seen before. The Reliant banked sharply, then cut its engines briefly before firing them again at full power. The unpredictable movement was based on submarine tactics from centuries ago, adapted for space. The alien vessels fired energy weapons that streaked past the Reliant, missing their target. Their targeting systems are designed to predict AI-controlled movements, Phillips said, excitement in his voice. Human unpredictability is confusing them. Target the lead ship, Ellie commanded. railguns and conventional missiles. The Reliant fired again, the old weapons finding their mark. The lead alien vessel's shields flared, but couldn't stop the physical projectiles moving at such high velocity. The aliens adjusted quickly, however. Their next volley struck the Reliant directly. The ship shuddered violently. Deflector shields holding at 60%. Porter reported from engineering. That hit would have fried a modern ship's quantum shields, but our old deflectors work on different principles. Ellie gripped her chair as another blast rocked the ship. Keep firing, Mr. Carter. Aim for their weapon systems. The battle continued. For 20 minutes, a lifetime in modern space combat. The Reliant was outmaneuvered repeatedly but survived each hit. Its old shields, designed to deflect physical objects and energy in the most basic way, didn't fail completely when struck like the complex quantum shields of newer vessels. Captain, I'm detecting a pattern in their attack sequences, Phillips called out. They repeat every 7 moves. It's like they're running a program. They probably are, Ellie realized. They developed their tactics against our AI systems, which follow logical patterns. She turned to Wright. After their next 3 moves, they'll try to flank us on the left. Instead of evading, take us straight at the ship on the right. When the aliens moved exactly as Phillips had predicted, Wright sent the Reliant diving toward the rightmost vessel. The sudden, illogical move caught the alien ship off guard. At point-blank range, Carter fired everything they had. The alien vessel broke apart under the barrage. For a moment, the remaining 2 ships seemed to hesitate. They're reassessing, Phillips said. I don't think they expected to lose one of their ships to us. Let's press the advantage, Ellie said. Target the damaged vessel next. The Reliant swung around, using Europa Prime's weak gravity to accelerate in an arc that no computer would have calculated as efficient. The damaged alien ship tried to retreat, but moved too slowly with its injured engines. Another volley from the railguns tore through its midsection. The ship drifted, power failing across its systems. The final alien vessel suddenly broke off its attack. It fired its engines at full power, moving away from both the Reliant and Europa Prime. They're retreating, Kelly said in disbelief. Should we pursue? Wright asked. Ellie shook her head. The colony is our priority. Let it go, but track its course if possible. The bridge crew watched as the alien ship disappeared from sensor range. A moment of silence fell, then broke as they realized what had happened. We won, Carter said softly. We actually won. Ellie allowed herself a moment to feel the victory, then focused on their next steps. Kelly, contact the research outpost. Phillips, scan for survivors on the damaged alien vessel. We might be able to learn something. Porter, damage report. As the crew carried out their orders, Ellie stared at the disabled alien ship on the view screen. Their outdated vessel had just defeated a technologically superior force that had crippled every modern ship in the sector. Captain, Kelly called. I'm receiving a transmission from the research outpost. They're asking who we are. Ellie smiled. Tell them the USS Reliant is here to help. Porter's voice came over the comm. Captain, you should know. That last hit damaged our long-range communication array. We can talk to the colony, but we can't. Contact Fleet Command? What about the fleet vessels? Ellie asked, still disabled. Their quantum cores will take days to restart without external help. Ellie considered this news. So we're on our own out here, with 2 damaged alien vessels and no way to tell Command what happened. Yes, Captain, Porter confirmed. Just us and our old, reliable systems. Ellie nodded slowly. Officer Phillips, I want to know everything about these aliens. Where they came from, what they wanted, and how they disabled our fleet so easily. Already working on it, Phillips replied, studying the readings from the disabled ship. Captain, I'm detecting technology on board that seems specifically designed to target our modern systems. It's like they studied us before attacking. Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't a random encounter. It was a planned attack by an enemy who knew exactly how to disable humanity's defenses. An enemy that hadn't counted on facing a 100-year-old ship with outdated technology and a crew that relied on human instinct instead of artificial intelligence. Kelly, get me a secure channel to the colony's director, Ellie ordered. We need to warn the other outposts. This attack may be just the beginning. 2 days after the battle, Captain Ellie Mason stood in the research outpost's main laboratory, surrounded by scientists and her senior officers. Projected above the central table was a holographic image of the damaged alien vessel they had captured. "We're calling them the Valteri," explained Dr. Laura Reed, the colony's lead researcher. She was a small woman with intense eyes that hadn't lost their excitement despite the recent attack. "Based on what we've translated from their ship's database, so far." "And they've been watching us for how long?" Ellie asked. Dr. Reed adjusted the hologram to show a timeline. "At least 30 years, possibly longer. They've had stealth observation posts throughout human space." Science Officer Phillips pointed to several sections of the alien ship. "Their entire weapon system was designed to exploit weaknesses in our technology. That electromagnetic pulse specifically targeted quantum cores and AI networks." Engineer Porter, who had been examining pieces of salvaged alien tech, nodded in agreement. "It's like they studied every upgrade we've made to our fleet and developed counters for each one." "But they never studied our older systems," Ellie said, understanding dawning on her face. "They focused entirely on our current technology." "Exactly," Dr. Reed confirmed. "The Valteri assumed all human vessels would use the same advanced systems. Your outdated ship was the blind spot in their planning." Lieutenant Wright leaned forward. "So what did they want? Why attack now?" Dr. Reed's expression grew more serious. "Based on the data we've recovered, this was just a test run. The Valteri were confirming their weapons would work against our fleet before launching a full invasion." A heavy silence fell over the room. With most of the fleet still recovering from the electromagnetic pulse, Earth's defenses were severely weakened. "We need to warn Fleet Command," Ellie said firmly. "The nearest functioning communication relay is at Garrison Station." "Communications," Officer Kelly suggested. "It's 3 days from here at our top speed." "Set course immediately," Ellie ordered. "Dr. Reed, can you send us everything you've learned about the Valteri? We'll deliver it along with our report." Dr. Reed nodded. "I'll have the data package ready in an hour. Captain Mason, there's something else you should know." She pulled up another holographic image, this one showing a complex piece of technology. "This is what we found inside their navigation system. It's a detailed map of every fleet vessel's scheduled movements for the next 6 months." Ellie stared at the image. "How could they get this information? These are classified fleet deployments." "Someone gave it to them," Dr. Reed said quietly. "The Valteri have human allies." The revelation hit everyone like a physical blow. The idea that humans would betray their own species to an alien threat was almost unthinkable. "We don't know who," Dr. Reed continued, "but someone with high-level access has been feeding information to the Valteri for years." Ellie's mind raced through the implications. If there were traitors in the fleet, who could they trust? Who would believe their warning about the Valteri? Gani? "Take this directly to Admiral Bennett," she decided. "No transmissions, no reports through normal channels. We deliver the evidence in person." 4 hours later, the Reliant departed Europa Prime, carrying crucial information about the alien threat and the possibility of traitors within the fleet. The ship moved slowly through space, its old engines pushing as hard as they dared. On the bridge, the mood was tense, but focused. Every crew member understood the stakes. "Captain," Phillips called from his station, "I've been analyzing the Valteri technology further. There's something odd about their development path." "Explain," Ellie said, moving to his side. Phillips displayed a comparison between human and Valteri technology. "See this? Their tech advances in perfect logical steps. No jumps, no innovations, just steady progress along predictable lines." "What are you suggesting?" "I think they lack creative thinking," Phillips said. "They're incredibly methodical and can reverse engineer anything they see, but they might not be good at dealing with the unexpected." Ellie considered this. "Like an outdated ship with unpredictable humans making decisions instead of AIs." "Exactly. It would explain why your naval tactics work so well against them." Engineer Porter joined them holding a datapad. "That fits with what I found examining their weapons. They're designed to counter specific defenses, not adapt to new situations." A plan began to form in Ellie's mind. "If we can't outgun them, maybe we can outsmart them." Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent call from Lieutenant Wright. Captain, sensors are detecting 3 vessels approaching at high speed. Configuration matches Valtteri design. Battle stations, Ellie ordered calmly. They must have called for reinforcements before the last ship fled. As the crew rushed to their posts, Ellie studied the tactical display. 3 against 1, and the Reliant had already taken damage in the previous battle. Options? She asked. We could try to outrun them, Wright suggested. Head for the asteroid field in the Ceres sector. Their ships are faster, Porter reminded him. We'd never make it. We don't need to outrun them, Ellie said, her mind working quickly. We just need to reach the field. Lieutenant Wright set course for the densest part of the Ceres asteroid field. Porter, can you give the engines everything they've got? Porter grinned. They're old, but they've got some fight left in them. I'll push them to the limit. The Reliant changed course, accelerating toward the distant asteroid field. Behind them, the 3 Valtteri ships adjusted their own course in pursuit. They're gaining, Wright reported. They'll be in weapons range in 10 minutes. Kelly, send a tight beam transmission to Garrison Station, Ellie ordered. Include everything we know about the Valtteri and the possibility of human collaborators. Mark it for Admiral Bennett's eyes only. Transmission sent, Kelly confirmed after a moment. But I can't guarantee it will reach them through all the interference in this sector. Ellie nodded grimly. Then we make sure we deliver the message in person. Phillips, how much do you know about asteroid mining? Phillips looked confused. Basic principles. The old mining ships used to use magnetic tethers to capture and redirect smaller asteroids. Does the Reliant have any magnetic tethers? Porter's eyes widened as he caught on to her plan. We have 2 in the auxiliary cargo bay. They're not very powerful, just meant for emergency towing, but they might work for what you're thinking. Get them ready, Ellie ordered. Carter, I want those railguns fully charged. We'll need precise shots. As the Reliant raced toward the asteroid field with the Valtteri ships closing in, Ellie gathered her officers for a brief tactical meeting. The Valtteri rely on predictable patterns and known technologies, she explained. So we're going to show them something unpredictable. Here's the plan. 5 minutes later, as the first Valtteri energy blasts struck the Reliant's weakened shields, the crew knew exactly what to do. It would be dangerous, possibly suicidal, but if it worked, they might just save the fleet and Earth from an enemy that had spent decades preparing to destroy them. And it all depended on a 100-year-old ship that everyone had called outdated. The Reliant shuddered as another blast from the pursuing Valtteri ship struck its shields. On the bridge, Captain Ellie Mason held onto her chair as the lights flickered. Shields at 30%, Porter reported from engineering. 1 more. Direct hit and they're gone. Time to the asteroid field, Ellie asked. 2 minutes, Lieutenant Wright answered, his hands moving quickly over the navigation controls. The first large asteroids appeared on the view screen, massive rocks tumbling slowly through space. Behind them, the 3 Valtteri ships maintained their pursuit, firing whenever their weapons came into range. Begin the maneuver, Ellie ordered. Just like we planned. Wright adjusted their course, taking the Reliant into the field at an angle. The old ship wasn't as nimble as modern vessels, but its manual controls allowed for fine adjustments that would be difficult for an AI to calculate on the fly. Deploy magnetic tethers, Ellie commanded. From the underside of the Reliant, 2 magnetic tethers extended outward. Originally designed for emergency towing, they now served a different purpose entirely. Target those 2 medium-sized asteroids, Ellie said, pointing to the view screen. Carter, ready the railguns. As the Reliant flew past 2 asteroids roughly the size of small shuttles, the magnetic tethers latched onto them. The ship groaned under the sudden additional mass. Tethers secured, Porter confirmed. Engines straining but holding. The pursuing Valtteri ships entered the asteroid field, maintaining their perfect formation. Their advanced sensors guided them through gaps in the field that should have been too narrow for such large vessels. They're still following the same approach pattern, Phillips noted. Just as we predicted. Wait for my mark, Ellie said calmly, watching the tactical display closely. The Reliant continued deeper into the field, dragging the 2 captured asteroids behind it. The Valtteri closed the distance, their weapons charging for another volley. "Now," Ellie ordered. "Cut the tethers and full reverse thrusters." Wright executed the command perfectly. The magnetic tethers disengaged, releasing the two asteroids, while the Reliance thrusters fired in the opposite direction, bringing the ship to an abrupt halt. The asteroids, still moving with considerable momentum, continued forward. At the same moment, Carter fired the railguns at several other nearby asteroids, the impacts changing their trajectories. Caught by surprise, the lead Valtteri ship tried to adjust its course, but the sudden stop by the Reliant had not been part of any human battle tactic they had studied. The released asteroids crashed into the alien vessel, tearing through its hull. "Direct hit," Carter called out. The two remaining Valtteri ships broke formation, trying to navigate around the sudden chaos of redirected asteroids. Their perfect coordination faltered as they faced a situation their tactical programs hadn't prepared for. "They're separating," Wright said, "becoming predictable again." "Target the one on the left," Ellie ordered. "Full power to forward thrusters." The Reliant lurched forward, its old engines protesting but responding. They headed straight for the leftmost Valtteri ship, which was still trying to establish a new attack pattern. "Fire all remaining missiles," Ellie commanded. The Reliance missile bays emptied as a dozen conventional warheads streaked toward the alien vessel. Half were shot, down by the Valtteri's defense systems, but the rest struck home. The alien ship spun out of control, crashing into a massive asteroid. That left one Valtteri ship. It suddenly broke off its attack and accelerated away from the asteroid field. "They're retreating again," Kelly said. "Not this time," Ellie replied, firmly. "Right pursuit course, Carter. Target their engines with the railguns." The Reliant gave chase, exiting the asteroid field. The Valtteri ship was faster, but it had taken damage during the chaotic battle among the asteroids. "Within firing range," Carter reported. "Fire." The railguns launched their projectiles. Two missed, but the third struck the Valtteri ship's engine section. The alien vessel slowed, trailing debris. "One more volley," Ellie ordered. The final shots from the railguns finished the job. The Valtteri ship's engines failed completely, leaving it drifting in space. "No signs of self-destruct sequence," Phillips reported, scanning the disabled vessel. "We can board it," Ellie nodded. "Prepare a boarding party. I want that ship's database. It might tell us where their fleet is and when they plan to attack." 6 hours later, Ellie stood in the Reliance small conference room. Around the table sat her senior officers, all looking tired but triumphant. "The data we recovered confirms our worst fears," Phillips said, displaying the information they had downloaded from the captured Valtteri ship. "They have a fleet of over 200 vessels preparing to attack Earth and our major colonies. They were just waiting for confirmation that their weapons would work against our defenses, which they did against every ship except ours," Porter added. "We need to reach Fleet Command immediately," Ellie said, "with both the information about the Valtteri and the evidence of human collaborators. Garrison Station is still 2 days away at our maximum speed," Wright informed her. "We don't have 2 days," Phillips said gravely. "According to the Valtteri battle plans, their main fleet begins moving in 36 hours. Ellie made her decision. "Kelly, prepare a detailed message with everything we've learned." "Right. Set course for Garrison Station, maximum speed." "Porter, I need those engines to give us everything they've got." "Captain," Kelly said hesitantly, "what about the collaborators? If we send a standard alert, they might intercept it." "We don't send a standard alert," Ellie replied. "We use an old emergency frequency from before the quantum communication network, something so outdated that modern systems don't even monitor it anymore." Kelly smiled as she understood. "Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways." The Reliant pushed on toward Garrison Station, its old engines straining beyond their rated capacity. Engineer Porter worked miracles in the engine room, coaxing more power from systems that should have failed hours ago. They arrived at Garrison Station with just 4 hours to spare before the Valtteri fleet was scheduled to depart. As the Reliant docked, Admiral Bennett himself was waiting to greet them, his face grave. "We received your emergency transmission," he said, as Ellie stepped off the ship. "I've already alerted Fleet Command and ordered all ships to prepare for a new threat." "Sir, our modern vessels are vulnerable to the Valtteri weapons," Ellie explained urgently. "Their entire attack strategy is built around exploiting weaknesses in our advanced technology." The Admiral nodded. "So I gathered from your message. That's why I've ordered our shipyards to begin retrofitting the fleet with older backup systems based on the Reliance specifications." Ellie couldn't hide her surprise. "You believed us that quickly?" "Captain Mason, when the only ship to survive an attack that disabled our entire sector fleet sends a warning, I listen." The Admiral's stern expression softened slightly. "Besides, your transmission included enough evidence to convince even the most skeptical members of command." In the days that followed, the Reliant became the center of intense activity. Engineers studied its systems, trying to understand how its outdated technology had resisted the Valtteri attacks. Fleet tacticians interviewed the crew, learning about the manual maneuvers and unpredictable human decisions that had confused the aliens' tactical programming. 1 month later, when the Valtteri fleet arrived expecting to find Earth's defenses crippled by their advanced weapons, they instead faced a human fleet that had been rapidly retrofitted with backup systems based on century-old technology. The battle was long and difficult, but humanity prevailed. After the war, the Reliant was scheduled to be returned to service as a patrol vessel, but Admiral Bennett had other ideas. "The Reliant isn't going back to patrol duty," he told Ellie during the victory celebration. "It's being permanently assigned to the Academy as a training vessel. Every cadet will serve time aboard, learning how to operate a ship without relying on AI and quantum systems." Ellie smiled as she looked across the room at her crew, now celebrated as heroes. "What about us?" "You're being promoted," the Admiral said, "and given command of our new flagship." "Let me guess," Ellie said. "Something with all the latest technology?" Admiral Bennett laughed. "Actually, no. It's a newly designed hybrid vessel, combining the best of our advanced systems with the resilience of older technology. We're calling it the Vanguard class." As Ellie watched her crew celebrate, she thought about their journey, from a punishment assignment on an outdated ship to saving humanity with that very same vessel. "You know," she said to the Admiral, "when they first assigned me to the Reliant, everyone called it outdated." "And now?" he asked. Ellie looked through the viewport where the Reliant was docked, its battle-scarred hull visible in the station. Lights. Engineers and cadets swarmed around it, studying the ship that had changed the course of history. "Now," she said proudly, "they call it a legend."